Welcome, Gavin. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, you are the co-founder and co-CEO of Talk Club charity. Is that correct? I got that right.
That is that is correct. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a little bit of a look around at your LinkedIn profile last night, and I was actually, oh, this is interesting. We might have a fantastically diverse chat today because you used to be a musician and songwriter, and also co-founded a music label as well. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm still a musician,
Still a
but
musician. Oh, great to hear that.
I would say used to be a professional musician. So that was, and a recording artist.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. And had a little bit of success with that as well, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you define success. But I signed a record deal with Atlantic Records in New York and was with Universal Publishing. I've had songs in film and TV, and I've made 6 albums now, and so yeah, in my eyes, I feel it's been a success. I look back on it and go, wow, that was pretty incredible. I did that. Wow. And for me, actually, the pinnacle of my music career was I got to have coffee with Ahmet Ertegun. And for those who don't know who Ahmet Ertegun is, he was one of the founders of Atlantic Records and signed Aretha Franklin
Wow.
and Led Zeppelin. And I got to have coffee with him in his office in New York. And
Wow.
amazing, fascinating bloke. And but it was funny at the time. I didn't know who he was. So they're like,
Oh,
oh,
that's
I was
fantastic.
probably, yeah. So I was probably being a bit cool for school, going, yeah, it's just some old bloke at Atlantic, and yeah, I'll have coffee with him. Yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah. I knew he was high up at the label, but I didn't really know who he was until afterwards. They sort of said, "Did you know who you've just had coffee with?" I'm like, "No." Yeah, pretty much founded Atlantic and soul and recording art, all these recording artists. So I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's just a
uh,
little bit notable. Just a little bit notable.
quite important in the sort of history of music, recorded music, and but I'm kind of pleased I didn't know that because I think I would have been quite nervous, and because I he asked me to play him some songs,
Oh, wow.
and so I was playing him my songs, and I think if I'd have known who he was, I would have been quite sort of different and nervous. So yeah, so that was quite a cool moment, an accidental cool moment.
Accidental cool moment. Yeah, those are great though, aren't they? So yeah, other than the music stuff, because we could probably talk about that for hours and probably will do anyway. But yeah, do you want to tell everybody a bit about how you got from sort of that part of your career and what brought you through that, and then working in mental health, training as a counsellor, and starting a men's mental health charity as well? Because I'm super fascinated by the journey. I really am.
Oh, great. Yeah, I suppose I came out of, I've been doing music a long time. I've been in bands since I was 17 years old, um, and got signed at the age of 21, 22. And then, I was lucky enough to have a career in doing music. And then when I got married and had children and was like, okay, I need to do a job here that's probably a bit more secure, and I hit harder times. My dad had died.
Oh
I
God.
sound like a blues song now, don't
Wow.
I?
Do do do
My
do do.
dad. But yeah, it literally was like that. It was like all at the same time. Lots of bad stuff happened. I'll be honest. My album had just come out, my debut record. My dad died. I was just about to turn 30. I was
Wow.
getting married. Like, and my dad had just started a music shop. It was his dream to run a guitar shop. He'd been a financial advisor his life and was like, I want to do something different. And I've always wanted a guitar shop. He had been running it 6 months when he passed away. So, of
Wow.
course, the family were like, right, can you help? I was like, yeah, I've never worked in retail, but yeah, okay, I'll help. I know about guitars. And so I got involved in that. And so, sort of life happened then, really, rather than having almost any say in what was going on. I was just drifting along with it, was running the music shop, and I did that for a few years. And then I was a bit lost, to be honest. I was a bit like, well, what shall I do now? I felt like I'd been out of the music game a little bit. The label were talking about doing another record, but obviously that moment had passed. And I was about to go to the States and sign a deal with this label in the States and tour America.
Wow. Okay.
Obviously got cancelled because of my dad passing. So,
It screws with your
not to say,
creativity, doesn't it? Something like that. You know, when it kind of happens, that
yeah.
really messes with your creativity. I felt the same thing when my mum died, so I know exactly where you're coming from. You know, I really did. Yeah.
Absolutely. And well, like John Lennon said, life is something that happens while you're busy making plans. And it's
Yeah.
pretty
Oh,
much
yeah.
it's exactly what happened to me. I was sort of busy going, right, okay, I'm going to do this, do that. And then that really impacted me, to be honest, knocked me sideways, as you can imagine, like you said about your mum. And I was grieving and I didn't know what to do and I was lost. And I came out of that period, I'd say 2 or 3 years later, almost a bit like, well, everyone's moved on and music, it's felt like I don't know what to do with music. And so I was thinking, what shall I do with the rest of my life? I went into teaching first. I retrained as a teacher and I was teaching at a music college. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years and I really enjoyed that. But while doing that, I really quite enjoyed the pastoral side of teaching and talking to kids and helping them and supporting them. And I started volunteering with a few charities actually, and I was volunteering at Off the Record. I was volunteering at Cruise, which is bereavement care, and I thought, I'm gonna volunteer with a few different charities and just see what that I like doing. And then from then I thought actually I quite enjoyed the charity work, and I thought right, I'm going to retrain as a. Someone mentioned it about retraining as a counselor, and I thought yeah, do you know what? I'm going to do it. So I started that journey 5 years ago. This September, 5 years ago, I started training. No, sorry, 6 years ago, I started training.
Wow.
Um, and 3 years ago, I qualified as a
Fantastic.
counselor. And while I was coming towards the end of that training, the last year of my training, was when I met Ben Akers, which leads me into the talk club side of it. So Ben was making a documentary called Steve about his childhood best friend who took his life.
Okay. Yeah.
I got introduced to him in the playground because both our kids at the same primary school. And, we got
Random
introduced
meeting. Yeah.
exactly. We only got introduced really because he's an Arsenal fan and I'm an Arsenal fan, and we're both Gooners. And someone said, "Oh, you should meet my mate. He's an Arsenal fan." So I got introduced to him because of Arsenal. And we got chatting as you do, and I sort of said, "What do you do?" And he's a documentary maker, and I said, "Well, I'm trained to be a therapist, but actually, I used to be a musician. I've got albums." And I sort of said to him then, "If you need any music for your film, please feel free to use my stuff for free. You know, you can have it absolutely." And so he went, "Oh, okay. Do you know what? I've got no music in the film." So I think he used about 10 of my songs in the
Wow.
film.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and so, and so that's how our relationship started. And then after the film came out, I sort of said to him, "What are you planning to do next, sort of after the film?" And he said, "Well, I'm thinking about setting up some kind of talking group for men because suicide rates are so high. It's 76% of suicides are male." So I said, "Well, do you know what? I'm interested in helping with this, especially as I'm trained to be a therapist. I'm interested in getting involved. Let me know if you want me to sort of help." And and he said, "Absolutely. I'm looking for someone like you because we haven't got anyone with that sort of therapeutic knowledge to sort of help with this." So I said, "Great." And that was it. And that was 4 years ago.
Wow.
Um, we had that conversation. Fast forward 4 years later, we've been a charity for 2 years.
Yeah.
We've got 64 groups around the world now.
Yeah, not just a
And
country. I wanted to highlight that for everybody because when I read that, I went kabang! Not just the country, the world. That's
the world,
amazing. That is
yeah,
amazing. That's an achievement to be seriously proud of. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
amazing stuff.
Yeah, 64 around the world from Sheffield to Singapore, from Sydney. to Cirencester,
From Sydney to Cirencester. I don't think
uh,
I've ever heard anybody say that phrase in my life ever before. Once from Sydney to Cirencester.
exactly. So it's a real,
I
it's
feel like that
and
should have
it
been written on the back of the Only Fools and Horses van. Do you know what I mean?
and it's been and it's just been an incredible roller coaster that's just and me and Ben always say to because me and Ben are co-CEOs, we decided as a sort of co-founders that we both were going to sort of be the heads of the charity as such. But we both say that, we're CEOs of a charity we never meant to start. We never meant to start a charity. It was just we realized quickly there was a need. Um, and we come up with something really simple. And I think the how you out of 10 was really simple and really
God,
powerful,
yeah, I love
and
it. It's brilliant.
people were connecting with it. And so to be honest, that's the really nice thing about it. Like with music, you create something and just go, well, I'll just put it out there and see what happens. And this is what happened with Talk Club. We created something, put it out there, and it had an incredible response. And here we are now. That's sort of my life story in what, 10 minutes?
Sub 10-minute life story. No, I love it. That's fantastic. I mean, what a life story as well. It's really fascinating. I'm really passionate about men's mental health myself as well, being a counsellor. My journey is kind of similar to yours. I lost my mum, and then later on that same year went and did my counselling certificate and really loved it. And then went and did an advanced diploma in counselling, and I love that. And I met somebody who was then going on to teach a post-qualifying course in creative arts therapies. So I went and did that. So then, all in the same year, I got all my counselling hours, did my Viva exam, qualified from the creative course, all of that all at the same time, and then opened a practice.
Right.
And then lockdown happened. I shut my practice, went to Dublin for a year, came back over here, settled in Bristol, had a bit of a breakdown, put myself back together again, opened a practice again, started a podcast. So that's me in a nutshell, really. So not too dissimilar a journey. We both lost a parent and then decided to retrain as counsellors. I think that's quite powerful stuff. It's a big driver that I don't know if you felt it as well, but I felt driven to want to help other people, and I always had wanted to help other people, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, but it was almost like the impetus of having that bereavement in my life drove forward the kind of need in me to then want to put myself forward and help other people. I think that was like a catalyst for me in some way. I don't know whether you feel that was a similar part of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly the same, Rich. Yeah, my dad dying was just completely, turned my world upside down. And and I'm not just saying this, but we were best mates. I used to speak to him on the phone every day. We were really close. He was an Arsenal fan too. He was a bass player in a band. We were both musicians, both Arsenal
Wow.
fans.
Yeah.
We both had same interests, and we were really close. And he was a big part of my musical journey. I mean, I would say if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have got a record deal. He was the one who would drive me to gigs, and more importantly, he was the one who kept picking me up because what people don't realize is when you sign a 7 album deal in New York, it's incredible and it's euphoric, but people don't realize how much crap you've been through to get to that
God,
moment.
yeah. Yeah.
How many people have said to me, "You're not good enough. You're not a good enough singer. You're not a good enough songwriter." And I've rejection letters. I've gone to labels and they've gone, "Nah." And and my dad was the one picking me up off the floor, going, "Look, you're amazing. I know I'm your dad, but you're amazing, and I believe in you. Believe in yourself because you've got a talent, and the world needs to hear it." And he kept saying that to me all the time and drilling it in. And I had that self-belief. It wasn't an arrogance, it was a self-belief because I had that support network. It became my core beliefs of like, as you know, in therapy, it became like, yeah, do you know what? And so I had that and that support from my dad to help me find my way. So when he died, I really felt like I lost a real big support in my life. It was someone who I really relied on in that sense. Um, and I went to cruise when I was grieving. I don't know if you know Cruise
Yeah,
Bereave
yeah,
UK,
yeah, very well. Yeah,
fantastic charity. I just want to give them a shout
yeah, they're
out.
incredible. They
I
do amazing work. They really do.
I went to them when my dad died, and so when I was thinking, so I volunteered for them. I thought, right, I'm going to give back and go and volunteer, and I became like a bereavement counselor for them for 2 years. I was there, and that was sort of my initial experience of being a counselor and
Mm,
talking and listening to people. And it was a calling. Um,
mm,
I don't think since picking up the guitar and writing a song, I'd ever felt, oh, this feels right. This feels like something I should be doing.
mm,
I
mm,
had that with music and I had that with therapy.
mm,
And that was the moment I thought, actually, no, I'm like you. I'm going to go and retrain
mm,
and
mm.
do this.
Oh, this is
And
amazing. I've never met you before, and our paths are so similar because I come from a background of DJing. Which
okay.
I got into when I was 19 accidentally, which is a whole nother story I won't go into right now, but I accidentally became a DJ. And then I got into music production, and then I had a couple of home studios and did a bit of, like, was never professional with it, was only ever for love, but worked with a few bands, had something I recorded, played on BBC Introducing, which was, kind of nice for me as a producer and recording engineer. And then from that, I got into, then I lost my mum around that kind of time, and then I started youth mentoring for one charity, and then I worked with another charity while I was doing my counselling training. And then when I finished all of that, I was employed working for a young people's charity as well. So I kind of had a bit of similar experience to you in the charity sector, and then, the music life and everything else. And I love these random connections. Like, do you know what I mean? I put out an email on a networking group, and you answered it saying, "Yeah, I'd love to come on your podcast." And I thought, "Yeah, that'd be great. You work for an amazing charity." And then I had a quick look into you, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And now I'm chatting to you, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, our paths are really similar." That's quite fascinating, isn't it? I love the way the universe works in that way. It always makes me smile.
Yeah, and well, like I believe in everything happens for a reason. I believe in that purpose and intent.
Mm,
Freud said I very much live by that. But
mm,
yeah, it's interesting because I've met so many musicians who are now working in mental health or therapy, and they've retrained. It's
yeah.
definitely, I think if you're a creative person, I think for me as a creative and someone who writes lyrics and I've got this connection with my soul, I feel, of
Mm,
when I write. It's just now I do it, it's so obvious
mm,
because
mm,
it's very creative, and especially in the room and the way I work with my clients, there's a creative process going on there.
definitely.
Um,
Same
so
here.
yeah, I really feel connected to that. So yeah, it's quite interesting when clients come in and I don't say anything obviously about my career or anything, but it's quite interesting how you draw people to you,
Yeah.
um, uh, you know, uh, who are also creative and musicians. But
Yeah. Yeah. Who was it who once said to me? It was one of my counselling tutors once said to me, "You don't always get the clients you want, but you get the clients you need." And
yes,
there's something in that relationship for both people in that counseling relationship. There's the client comes to you with a need for something, but they also come with something to give to you if you're willing to observe the relationship in that way. I find that fascinating as well. The way the universe works in bringing people together in that way just blows my mind. It's like, wow, yeah, it's so interesting. It really is.
yeah. I mean, it's my week now, especially. No 2 weeks are the same.
Mm,
I so I do therapy on Mondays now. I've got a practice on a Monday, and I see clients,
mm,
and then Tuesday to Friday, I'm CEO of Talk Club, and I run the charity. But when I was first qualified, I was doing 2 days a week, building up to 3 days, and then suddenly the charity were like, "No, we need you. It's getting busy," and suddenly it took off. So, but I like that. I like the fact that no 2 weeks are the same,
yeah.
and no clients are the same. No weeks are the same. I love the fact I sit in my chair and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the client.
For some people, that's
I
terrifying,
don't.
though, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, but that's what the training's
But
for,
I
you know.
love
That's
it.
why we do
I
the
love
training.
that. I really do.
Well, and that's I was saying to someone, one of my work colleagues is about to do his training, and I was saying about PD, and someone was saying about how much they hated PD, and we've always called it personal destruction.
Mm, mm.
Uh, for those out there who don't know, it's called personal development, and it's like an hour to an hour and a half each week. You sit down in your training and you basically just discuss anything you want to bring to the room.
Mm,
And normally people bring conflict, people bring things up that
mm,
maybe is sitting there for them. And it could
mm.
be anything from a
Oh God,
comment you
yeah.
made in the kitchen to a
Yeah.
look you gave me the other day. And it's almost purposely built to have this conflict and
Yeah.
ruptures. It's just full of ruptures all the time. So it's quite an uncomfortable feeling. But it's only now once you're qualified you realize that, oh, that's what that was for,
Mm,
get you used to sitting there with that uncertainty of, I don't know what's about to happen. Oh my word, what's going to happen? Oh no. And sitting there with that uncertainty, you kind of get used to it.
mm,
And so
mm.
by the time you get to clients
You kind of
and you're
learn to love it, I think. That group process stuff. You kind of learn to love it, don't you? It's kind of weird. I really missed it when my training group ended. I was like, oh no, I missed that now. You know, to start with, I was like, oh no, a group. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And then you kind of put yourself out there and you put yourself out there, and then you learn to do it. And then I kind of learned to love it almost. It's kind of strange.
well, I suppose everyone's different. I mean, everyone I've spoken to has had a different experience.
Every training group
So
is completely different as well.
yeah, it really depends on the group and how much the group want to get. One therapist I was chatting to the other day actually about this, funny enough, and she was saying that they didn't like the PD group. They felt they didn't feel safe, and
Mm,
they didn't like it. And
mm.
whereas some have said, like you, oh, I loved it, and it was great, and I got in there and got dirty, and I
Yeah,
learned
yeah, too
loads.
right, too right.
It's really a mixed bag. But it's quite daunting. But I think it's really good practice for, so
Yeah.
when you come to sit in that chair and there's an uncertainty of don't know what's going to happen today,
Mm,
you
mm.
kind of feel ready for it,
I
you
mean, you
know.
need to learn to be able to manage conflict in relationships with your clients, right? I mean, sometimes you're going to have conflict come up. Sometimes you're going to have transference thrown your way where a client's feeling angry with you, and you sit there knowing it's misplaced, but it still feel when it happens the first time, it still feels a bit like, oh, this is weird, because you know what's going on, and the anger's directed at you, but it's not actually yours to own. It's kind of a weird feeling, isn't it? But you learn to roll with that stuff, and I think you're right. You're absolutely right. Dealing with the unexpected. I think there's something else in that for me as well about us as creative people really needing variety all the time. You need to mix it up all the time. I'm really happy at the moment. I've got a day job which is going to meander down as my counselling practice picks up. I've got my counselling practice and I've got a podcast, so I am occupied all the time, and it's all very, very different stuff, and I love all of that. I love the variety in my life. I get bored too easily. That's my problem. I need that constant change like you, and I need that creative flow all the time, and I think new clients bringing new things helps me with my flow. It's funny in that respect, isn't it? That duality of kind of working with one person in a room is quite bizarre.
And something you may be interested in is we're doing therapy groups now at Talk Club. That
Ah,
might be interested in getting involved with, and we do our own in-house training, and we train up therapists, and we run short-term psychotherapy groups now.
I'd love
It's
to
some,
come in and do some group stuff with creative work, because I've done workshops and I've delivered all that kind of stuff before. So yeah, I'd love to come and work with you guys and do some of that. That'd be fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, it was something that evolved at Talk Club. So we started as talk and listen groups, as we call them.
Mm.
And at Talk Club, we do 4 rounds. So I'll just quickly tell people about that.
No,
That
please do, because I want you to go into Talk Club a bit. That was kind of half the point of this podcast, and we've kind of ended up talking about creativity and music and stuff. So yeah, let's do what we started out to do and talk about
let's talk
Talk.
about Talk Club. So, first of all, a Talk Club, you talk about Talk Club.
Brilliant,
So
love that.
we do 4 rounds. We do how you out of 10.
Mm,
10 being the best day of your life, one being you're struggling. And you say, explain why you're that number as much or as little as you want to explain that number. And then the second round is what are you, we call it the grateful round. What are you grateful for in your life? What are the positives in your life?
mm.
Name 3 things maybe that you're grateful for. And you'd be surprised how many people say, "Oh, I've not thought of that before. I hadn't thought about what I'm grateful for." So it's a really
Yeah.
nice thing to do to stop and just
Yeah.
think things you're grateful for. And then round 3 is we use the language mental fitness. So what are you doing this week for your mental fitness? And we say with a focus on the core 3 pillars of your well-being, which is diet, sleep, and exercise.
Mm, mm.
So, what are you doing this week regarding your diet, sleep, and exercise, and that helps your mental fitness alongside your mental fitness? And then round 4 is how are you out of 10 now? What's your number now as we check out? And we sit in group circle, um, and it lasts up to 2 hours. And you have a talking ball, so nobody's talking over you. It's
Lovely.
very safe. It's very structured. We purposely designed it so there was none of this. One thing I found early on when I was starting the groups was men were talking over each other,
Mm, mm,
and and also that it felt like there was a lot of judgment going on,
mm, mm.
and a lot of criticism, and a lot of, I'm going to help. And we kind of thought, well, actually, do we need that? We need a place where people can feel safe, especially if you're an introvert. You've got a place you can come and you can talk without interruption. And actually, it was one of this guy who came early on, and it was the moment for me that the light bulb went and it changed. As he said, I love this. He said, I'm not heard in my job. I'm not heard at home with my partner. I
God,
come here
yeah.
heard. And I just thought, wow, okay, this is
Yeah.
special. This is really special. We need to make sure we that men feel that they've got to come here and talk. Because I think one of the early talk clubs, someone said something about they're on antidepressants, and then someone else went, "Oh, you don't want them; they don't work." And that's when I thought, no, actually, this isn't going to work. We've got people sort of talking over each other and sweeping statements. And
Mm,
so I said, you know what? Why don't we just have a talking ball and you talk and you pass the ball on, and there's no cross conversation. It's just you sharing what's going on.
mm,
Um,
mm.
because we talk over each other all the time in pubs and
It's hard
with
not to,
friends.
right?
Exactly. So we listen to respond rather than
Mm.
listen to understand, and
Yes.
that's
Fast-paced
what
society encourages that as well, doesn't it? And social media and
absolutely.
all that. That's a real encouragement into not listening properly and people
Yeah.
not being heard properly, even by family and parents. I think you made that really important point. Then that guy didn't feel like he was heard anywhere. You know? Yeah. Wow.
So we are almost teaching men to listen.
Yeah.
We're going, look, listen to understand your fellow man rather than, and so the only way we respond to each other in the room is we thank each other for sharing. So once you finish saying your piece, people will say thanks for sharing. That's it. That's the only time you will respond. And it's something really is powerful. It's a powerful thing to listen to each other. And as we know, if you listen intently to someone, it raises oxytocin in your body,
Yeah.
which is we know is the love drug.
Yeah.
So you're basically giving yourself a virtual hug every time you listen to
Mm,
someone
mm,
share
mm,
their story.
mm.
And so there's so much from this, going into sort of the deeper side of it. We're teaching men to listen. And someone actually said that. They sent us an email. I don't know who it was, but they said something like, "Thank you. My husband is such a better listener since coming to Talk Club." So I thought, well, there you go. We're saving marriages as well at Talk Club. Amazing. So
Yeah.
it's really important. So that's the talk and listen groups,
Mm,
is literally talk and listen to each other. Then after lockdown, um, we could exercise with up to 6 people.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so I just put it out there on our WhatsApp group. I'm going to go for runs. There's 5 other people want to go for a run, and we'll start a talk and run. and we'll do a how are you out of 10 check-in, go for the run, come out, come back and do a how are you out of 10 check out. And that was how Talk and Run was launched. And so now we call that Talk and Exercise.
Okay.
And we've now got Talk and Skate, Talk and Run, Talk and Rugby, Talk and Football, Talk and Ping Pong is launching, Talk and Book Club, you name
Nice.
it,
Nice.
a Talk and Walk.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get any way we can get men to open up and just understand where they're at with their number. And then from that, the natural progression from the talk and exercise was um, therapy groups.
Yes.
And the reason we started that, as a therapist myself, and I've got a waiting list of, I think I've got 6 to 7 people on my waiting list at the moment. I've got so many people who need counselling, and I know that everyone I know is pretty chocker. So I thought, well, if we could see 6 men at a time, then we're going to help with that. And no, okay, I understand for some it's not as good as one to one, but it's something.
Yeah.
And it's proven to really work. And the men are really responding to the groups.
I think if nothing
And
else, it's a brilliant gateway. It's
absolutely.
it's because you can do an awful lot of psychoeducation stuff in groups with men, and then if they feel like they want something deeper than that, for a lot of people that's enough. A lot of people just need that understanding and processes, and then they can apply it to themselves. For other people that are holding trauma or have other complications going on, maybe they need a diagnosis or there's something else in their history that's bothering them. Maybe they need to go a bit deeper than that, but that's a good gateway to them, because then they come into us as counsellors, having done the psychoeducation part, ready to work. I had this conversation with Caroline Lee Smith the other week. She was saying the same thing. She's an embodiment therapist, and she was saying the same thing. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to do those first 4, 6, 8 sessions with somebody just doing the psychoeducation stuff, teaching them process? Wouldn't it be great if they could just come into us already having done that, and we can just work? Because she was saying, like, therapy would be so much more efficient in that way, and I completely agree with her. It really would be so much more efficient for everybody. So yeah, I love that you guys are doing that. That's brilliant stuff.
Well, I think one thing in about this country, there's not a continuity of care, and
Yeah.
we want to create a continuity. And so our theory is, once you're in Talk Club, you're in Talk Club for life. Well, if you're a man and you're with us, you go to like everything we do at Talk Club, we simplify everything. So if your numbers are between 5 and 10, and you feel they're regularly between 5 and 10, and you're coping, then keep going to the talk and listen groups or talk and exercise, and maintain your mental fitness and keep your numbers up high. If your numbers drop below 5 and you feel you're struggling and you need to process more, come to the therapy group, and we run it exactly the same. The first question we ask you in the therapy group is, how are you out of 10? So everyone checks in with their number. Obviously, they can go a bit deeper, and they obviously can go, well, I'm a 4, I'm really struggling. Me and my partner or work or whatever they want to bring, they can bring it and go deeper with a trained therapist in the room. And there's that continuity. They're used to the how are you out of 10. They're used to talking in groups. And so once they come to us, the therapy, people have fed back, oh yeah, actually it feels quite comfortable because I'm used to talking. Like you were saying, they've almost been trained in, okay, this is okay. I can come in here, talk more openly, be more self-aware of what's going on. And the groups have been a huge success. We're about to launch 3 new groups in Bristol in September.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So we've got 3 therapy groups launching in September. We are expanding this around the UK in 2024. And we're also going to expand to offer one-to-one counselling soon, which is obviously the next step for the charity. But we want to launch the therapy groups around the UK because we just feel that this is a really good way and it's cheap. We only ask for a donation to the charity to come to the therapy groups. So it's like you said, a really good way of educating men, getting them used to therapy, and then by the time they go to one-to-one, they will be used to that language and used to that openness and be more on their edge of awareness.
Absolutely. No, I'm loving this, mate. This sounds absolutely amazing because, like, you're pulling on several different things that other people are doing and bringing it all together, and then adding therapy into the mix, which is great. You know, because I've had conversations with Dan Rowe from Andy's Man Club. I've had conversations with Rob from Dudes and Dogs. I don't know if you know those two charities at all, but
Yeah.
Anders Man Club do the similar thing with the talking groups with the ball. Rob from Dudes and Dogs does dog walks with men, and he's more like therapeutic mentoring kind of thing, and then he will signpost on to other therapy charities if he needs to. But I love that you guys are doing the whole lot, the whole kit and caboodle shebang, and then putting therapy on at the end if it's needed. I think it's fantastic, and it's what's needed for men's mental health. It really is. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to come and give some of my time to do therapy groups and to run therapy groups with you guys. I think it would be amazing. And
Fantastic.
hopefully I can bring a bit
Yeah,
of
no,
a sense
that's
of creative
great.
therapy into the mix as well. And we can start offering things to guys, and that aren't really available anywhere else. I think that's what I want to say. That's so really amazing about what you're doing is this stuff isn't available anywhere else. You can't get this on the NHS. You can't go to your doctor and go, I'm feeling a bit down, and he goes, oh well, we run there's an NHS talk club that you can go to. There's none of that. You get nothing. And the thing that really pissed me off about lockdown was that everybody in the country was suffering with anxiety or depression or isolation or loneliness, or everybody's mental health was affected in some way or another. Seemingly not maybe some of the people in charge of the country, but that's another story. There was nothing done to help people with mental health. There was no, we're sorry we've had to lock you down because of the virus, but we know everybody's going to suffer from anxiety. Here's some stuff on how to manage your anxiety. Nada, nothing. That actually was one of the things that made me angry during that. Actually affected my mental health in lockdown because I was angry about it. It was I think the more that people like you and other charities around the area are doing things, and nationally and globally now are doing things to help men's mental health, the better, because the flag needs to be flown, the shouts need to be louder, we need more funding coming in. I'm not sure how you guys are funded, but I know Anders Man Club, they don't take any funding from any pots. They're all self-funded completely. I know Rob from Dudes and Dogs, we had a bit of a conversation about, he's funded through pots, but it's getting more and more difficult to get them. As we go into recession, I think we're going to find more and more people needing help. So, fantastic that you're here doing this, mate. I really applaud what you're doing. It's amazing. It really is.
Well, regarding funding, there's two things we don't. We're quite entrepreneurial at Talk Club. Me and Ben, who run it, who head it up. We wanted to be self-sufficient, and we wanted to find ways of us of making the charity self-sustainable and give it a long-term future.
Mm.
So we've got our own beer, our own alcohol-free beer. So we've
I
got
saw that.
Clearhead.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So we went, and that was our idea. We went to Bristol Beer Factory and said, "Look, we've got an amazing name for an alcohol-free beer called Clearhead.
Mm.
Uh, do you want to make it?
Mm.
You can have the name, give us 5% of the income, and you can have." So we did a deal with them, and
Cool.
now, forevermore, the charity will be getting 5% of every can sold for the charity. We've also now got a coffee. Went to Wogan Coffee. It's called Talk Club 10. And we've now got our own coffee, and we get a percentage of every bag of coffee sold.
Mate, I'm a
And we
coffee
do
snob, so I'll be trying that.
it's very,
Yeah,
it's
no, I
very
have to.
nice.
I have to have ground or grind my own, or it has to be fresh coffee every morning, or I
Yeah,
cry.
I do. Yeah, I grind my own beans as well. It's very good. It's called Talk Club 10. Try it. It's
I will
very
do, mate. I
nice.
will do. Yeah.
And so we've got coffee, and we're talking to other people at the moment about different partnerships. And then the other big thing that we do now is we set up a thing called business support,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
we now are one of the mental health providers for I can't say actually because we're not launching it till September, so I can't even tell you on this podcast. But we're in with a lot of businesses, put it that way, and
Okay.
and corporates.
Mm.
We're doing
Mm.
a lot of corporate support, mental health support,
Mm.
and that's now become a big thing for us. They've come to us going, "Help! We don't know what to do," and we've gone, "Okay." well, like we do at Talk Club, let's find new ways of helping you and supporting you.
Mm.
And like you said, we seem to be a mix of lots of different charities,
Mm,
and
mm,
that's exactly it. We've gone,
mm.
what's everyone else doing? And not to say how can we make do it better. That sounds
It's more about how
arrogant,
can you
but
bring it together, mate, I think.
yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
how can we bring all those things together? Like you said, like Andy's Man Club,
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic charity, but they've got men going there, and if they need more support, i.e., counselling or therapy, where do they go? Because it isn't out there, and it
Mm.
certainly isn't free. There's a
No.
huge wait list. So we thought, okay, let's do therapy groups. So those people who can't afford it, for example,
Mm.
they've got somewhere they can go. And actually, I've had conversations with Andy's Man Club, and we met up recently. And I said to them, look, if you want to signpost any of your regulars to our therapy group, they're more than welcome to come along. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. That's what we need is more inclusivity and more people working together. And, some of the flavors I picked up from people when I've reached out have been, no, I'm very happy doing my own thing. I'm very happy doing my own thing. And people don't want to work together. And my sense in all of this was I wanted to kind of do something to bring people together and to make something more inclusive. And then I found Talk Club and I was like, you're already doing it. That's brilliant. I'm going to come and talk to you and find out what you're doing and have a chat about it because, you're already doing something that I was thinking would be a brilliant idea in the area and trying to bring everybody together and trying to bring everything under one roof, which is important because as long as things are dotted around in separate pockets with different charities and different organizations, it's really hard for people to access. You want something under one roof that's streamlined, that people can see as one thing, that, houses everything under one umbrella. That's what you want. And hopefully you will get other charities and people pulling in, and signposting some of their guys to you and some of your guys to what they're doing as well. What I loved about what Rob was doing was bringing in a sense of nature, and bringing in a sense of being outdoors and soaking up some of this beautiful landscape we've got around us. What I loved, the same thing with Mental Health Mates Bristol, they do walk and talks, and that's a very similar thing, and I love that. I love the passing the ball thing and the idea of men sitting around in a circle from Andy's Man Club. All that stuff is brilliant, and to have all of that under one roof plus so much more, if you're a young lad and you're into skating or football or cycling or whatever, there's a talk group for it doing something. I think that's amazing. It's accessible to everybody, which is really what's needed, because what, early intervention is so important. The younger we catch problems in men, the less they develop as they get older, and I think that's really something that needs more doing for it. Actually, mental health in general, but particularly with men.
Yeah, and I would say we are a charity that plays nice.
Mm,
I'm always reaching out to other charities and saying, look,
mm,
do you want to get involved? There's one guy called Dean who set up a charity called Walk and Talk 999,
mm.
and just cater for the 999.
Cool.
And we do stuff with him, and Talk Club is part of what they do, and they use the How You Out of 10. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, absolutely, let's team up and help. Because the more we connect with each other and help, the bigger and more support we can offer.
Mm,
We just launched Talk Youth,
mm.
so we are going to help Ben, who made the Stevie film. It's just made a film called Our Kids, Our Lives, which, yes, I've done the music for that film as well.
Fantastic.
So Ben got to work together again on that. And that film only came out last week, and that is about mental health and kids,
Mm.
and actually helping parents to help kids to talk.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our sort of one of the messages. We're not starting another charity.
You potentially could out of just that subject.
I know. I said to Ben, "What have we started?" Oh no! But it's going to be sort of alongside, and Talk Club. I mean, eventually, the reason we called it Talk Club is because we want it to be for men, women, and children.
Mm,
That is our goal.
mm, mm,
We want our service to be for everyone eventually.
mm.
We're focusing on men because the suicide rates are so high in men.
Shockingly high. So many people don't know that. When I tell them the statistics, they're like, what? Yeah, you don't realize, because it's not publicized. It really isn't. When something comes up on my feeds for, mental health charities or whatever, I'm always like sharing it because I think more people need to understand the stats. They're not publicized enough. People are really suffering, really suffering.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's every 90 minutes now. I think it was every 2 hours, and then I read it was every 90 minutes. I mean, people don't really know, to be honest, the truth of the stats because they're varying. But it's not, it's in 15 years, it's not got better. It slightly dipped in lockdown, obviously, because we're in lockdown, but the numbers are coming up again. I think September, the new numbers come out,
Something
and I
like that, yeah.
think quite shocking. And we've still got work to do. We've still got to get those numbers down because it's still 6,000 men a year are taking their life.
Yeah.
There's 6,000 men. And someone said a really good analogy the other day. They said, um, if a plane crashes, the IF is it IFA or I can't remember what it's called, but the flying, I can't remember what it's called, but they would spend so much money on making sure that plane never crashes again. Safety checks, all this, make sure we do that so much. And they said, can you imagine the suicide rates are like the equivalent of something like 16 A380s crashing every year.
Yeah.
If we had 16 A380s crashing every year, what would happen? We would go, this cannot happen. We got to do something about this. Right. Training, money. Come on, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, when I heard that analogy, I thought, you're so right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people dying.
If you look at it in terms of something that you could imagine, like you put 6,000 people, two in a car, that's 3,000 cars. You throw that down a 3-lane motorway and see how many miles the tailback is, and that's how many people are dying a year. How many men are taking their lives every year? And that's a guesstimate figure. I always think of these figures as guesstimate figures. They're probably not accurate, but even so, it's still shocking.
And even more shocking than that, and this is men and women, and because obviously that's people dying. We're not even talking about people who attempt to take their life.
No.
The stat I read the other day is that every 5 minutes, just in the UK, somebody tries to take their own life. Every 5 minutes. So there is a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of support. And it starts with getting yourself along to a talking group and it's working on your mental fitness, using the how you out of 10. If your numbers are dipping, then get yourself help, get to a GP, do what you can. But it actually, do you know what? It starts with us because the thing most likely to kill me statistically is myself.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? When you say those words, that sounds so daft, but the stats say that,
Absolutely. And so if it starts with me, then it's up to me. And I think that's part of it now is taking responsibility, as we talk about in therapy with my clients, taking responsibility of the self, making those choices, authenticity, all those things that we sort of hit home. And it's true. We've got to take responsibility for the self. And that starts with how are you looking after yourself on a weekly basis, and starting with the diet, sleep, and exercise. But if your numbers are dipping, what are you going to do about it? Well, if you're going to a talk club, we say talk club is like a gym for the brain.
I love that. And I love the mental fitness thing as well. I think that's so brilliant to highlight that point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about we focus on physical fitness, but we don't wait till we have a heart attack before we go to the gym.
No.
So it's the same as our mental fitness. We're actually not doing enough to keep mentally fit. This is why Talk Club was invented, is because that reason of going, we're very much a preventative charity. We are all about prevention. We are about going, look, come to talk. I hear blokes all the time. I say to friends, come to Talk Club. They go, no, I'm all right at the moment. I go, that's the point. That's when you need to go to a talk club because you're all right. So they think if they're an 8, they don't need to go. And I'm going, no, if you're a 7 or 8, go to a talk club and you'll stay a 7 or 8. So rather than I'll wait actually until I'm a 4.
Yeah, no. You don't
Exactly, but
wait
that's
until your
what,
muscles are wasting away before you go to the gym, do you? You know, you go to the gym when you're
that's
like,
it,
oh
Rich.
no, I feel like I'm
Absolutely.
suffering a bit. Yeah.
Absolutely, and this is the men. It's this, and this is what we're finding in businesses and corporates when we're going to them. It's a broken fix it mentality,
It's
and
a
we've still
mindset, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
mindset. It's like, no, I won't say anything, and I'm guilty of it regarding my physical health. I go, I'll wait until I'm really ill before I go to the doctor. Whereas my wife would go, no, you go now. You're not feeling great. Go
It's
now.
like an echo of my own life.
Exactly, and it's the same with mental fitness. It's mental health. It's no, I'll wait until I'm really, really depressed, really low, on the floor, don't want to get out of bed, then I'll get help. And we're going, do you know what? Let's think about prevention. Let's think about how can we stay mentally fit so we don't get to that point. And that's what it's all about for us. It's about prevention.
Yeah, that's fantastic because that's where the work needs to be done. You know, it's
And it's
prevention. It's
positive.
highlighting. You know, yeah,
We're a positive charity.
yeah.
We everything we, we're quite a really positive, right, okay. And everything we do is been done out of a reaction. So, you know, we've set up talking groups because we're like, people are going, I need to talk. Right, we'd set up talking groups. And then people have gone, I don't like talking groups. Okay, I'll set up a running group. Oh, actually, I don't like running. Okay, I'll set up a therapy group. It's like that's why we've done it.
It's
To
kind of
go, do you
feeding
know
the
what?
supply and demand, though, isn't it? You know, it is kind of answering what people want, which is
Absolutely.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. And that's why we set up Talk and Skate because a guy came to us called James and said, I love skating. Can we make this work around skating? I was like, yeah, absolutely. We just do a how are you out of 10 check-in, you skate for 45 minutes, and then you do a check out at the end. And they do it every 2 weeks and it's working brilliantly. And he said, we've got people come in who are checking in with their numbers. And he said, it's incredible. And so we're finding any way we can get people, whether it's walking outside or running, any way we can. The key is the how you at 10. And I think, to be honest with you, I think that's the power of what sets us apart from,
I
other
agree.
charities.
I agree.
Because I think the trouble is with if you set up a talking group or a walk, you don't really know how those people are doing. You don't know actually, have I made an impact? Are they leaving this group
Yeah.
better than when they came in?
Yeah.
They can say yeah, but how do we measure that? And that's why we set up. That's why we come up with how are you out of 10, because we felt like no, we need to know if we're having an impact.
Yeah.
We need to know that if a man walks into a talking group, we need to know what number he is when he comes in and when he leaves, because if his number is lower, then we need to support them and make sure they've got the right support in place for them. It's a safeguard thing as well. It's a duty of care, and I think that's really important as a
That's so
charity.
important.
So important, as we know as therapists, you need to make sure that they're leaving you in a safe place,
And you want to make sure you catch anybody who's coming in who is like at any sense of immediate risk as well. You know, you kind of want to catch them and catch them early, because that's when you lose people, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I think only in the talk and football have I heard people's numbers drop down. You know,
It's a disagreement with somebody about whose team was better.
yeah, or they've missed a chance on goal, or let a goal in, and they, oh yeah, I came in a 7, I'm living a 6 because I missed an open goal. That's the only time I've heard numbers drop.
Oh, that's
In the
fantastic.
talking groups, they always, and I would say 99.99%, the numbers always go up or stay the same. They never drop down.
That's
Only
brilliant.
once I've heard someone go, actually, I've realized I checked in too high. I checked in a
Checked in
9.
too high.
I checked in a 9 and realized I probably wasn't a 9. I'm actually an 8 and I've checked in at a 9. So, that's the only time I've heard someone say my numbers have gone down because I checked in too high. But
Yeah.
I think the good thing about it is when everyone comes, they do check in quite high. And then as they get used to coming to the group, and they feel safe and secure.
Mm,
They
mm,
start to check in with real numbers. But
mm,
it's something your listeners can do with yourself every day. I do it. I mean, I wake up every morning and go, right, how am I out of 10? And
mm,
think, okay, my numbers are lower today. What can I do for me to help me get my numbers up?
mm, mm,
Or what can I do to help myself?
mm,
It's
mm,
a I do my son, my youngest son is 9. I check in with him, how you out of 10,
mm.
every day.
It's really
And
powerful. I mean, how many people don't get asked that ever? I
yeah,
mean, I mean, like, I do the mental health street interviews as well as these podcasts as well.
yeah, I saw that.
It was really interesting. And I had Mindset by Dave come down with me. Dave Cottrell came down a couple of weeks ago, and we went out and asked some questions. And he was asking people off the bat, first question, "How's your mental health today?" Which is something I'd always kind of shied away from, because I'm like, I think most people are just going to go, "Yeah, I'm okay," even if I'm not. But actually, there was quite a few people who kind of went, yeah, "Do you know what? Today I'm struggling a bit," or "Yeah, average." And we got some honest answers out of it. And I was thinking, this is brilliant. People are more open than I figured they would be. It's really fascinating. And I think the more people get asked these kind of simple questions, the more it raises the profile of mental health, and it normalizes that it's okay to not be okay. It's all right to have a day where you're not feeling great, but just be aware of what you can do to turn that into a better day. Like
Well, I
for
take
me, it's
that
good
from
food, or a bit of exercise, or I might go for a walk, or I might go play golf, or do something I really enjoy. Because if I spot that downward spiral starting to happen, I can turn that energy around with an upward spiral by doing something I love. And I love that kind of vortex idea I get in my head when I think about that, because like a downward spiral starts from a single point and then moves outwards, but so does an upward spiral. And if you can catch it in time before the downward spiral gets too big, if you're doing the upward movement in time, you cancel it out and you move through. And that's kind of how I look at how I view my own mental health moving through a bad day. If I wake up and I'm having a bad day, I've got the power to change that if I choose to look at it in that way. And I think getting that across to people is so needed. You hold the power in yourself to be able to change how you're feeling and how you're viewing the world. So
Mm.
that's a point that's so often missed, I believe.
I do see that hashtag a lot. It's okay to not be
Yeah,
okay,
see that? Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I think is a bit of a hashtag thing, but I would go one step further than that and go, it is okay to not be okay, but understand why also.
Yeah,
Because, that's what I'm saying with the how are you out of 10. If you're using how are you out of 10 every day, it's not about the language. I think the language okay is quite vague, because okay for one may not be okay for another, for example, because
true.
we,
Yeah.
we say one man's 4 is another man's 8,
Mm,
because what's okay to you, what's okay to me, okay to me could be a 7, but okay to you could be a 3.
mm, mm.
So
It's
you
very
don't actually
subjective, isn't it?
know. It's very subjective, that word.
Mm,
So for me, I find it a bit vague and subject, it feels like it needs a bit more weight.
mm,
Yeah, it's okay to,
mm.
well, be okay, but why are you okay?
Yeah.
Why? What's going on for you? What's the number? So are you okay? Are you a 5 today because what you've had poor sleep or exercise or diet, or things aren't going right at work?
Mm,
It's almost like, understand, yes, it's okay to just be okay. We should never feel like we should be something more than we are. But
mm.
also, I think about education, like you said, and understanding why we are feeling okay, whatever okay is.
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but maybe you should go on the streets and do that. Ask how you're out of 10.
I will do. I will do. Actually, mate, do you want to come and do some street interviews with me? I think that would be really fun. I love going out with other people and doing them. I think it'd be a great laugh if you're up for it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
we
let's
can
do
we
it.
can go out and do that, and do some street interviews together and ask people how they are out of 10. I mean, it's something I've used with clients a lot in the past, particularly working in other organisations. You get the score mark in the core sheets, and all the other ones as well, different ones you do that I can't spring to mind because I haven't used them for years. It's not something I do in my own private therapy, but I think the how are you out of 10 is a really powerful one that I'm going to adopt into that, because I think Number one is a question people don't get asked. Number two, it really gives you an opportunity to think about where you are, and you've got a scale to be able to apply that to, which is also super important. So I'm going to steal that off you if you don't mind and apply that to my clients because I think
Absolutely.
it's fantastic.
Well, like you said, we how you out of 10's been around for donkey's years. Doctors use it
Mm,
with children all the time with measuring pain.
mm,
We just thought actually we need something to measure mental health.
mm.
Um, we have trademarked how you out of 10, so it is trademarked
Good.
regarding the use of it.
You're not going to sue me
Regarding
if I use it, no?
no, 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 not at all.
Thank you. I've got that recorded, by the
Uh,
way.
no, so Talk Club and how you out of 10 on our logo and everything is trademarked
Mm,
as a logo and as a use of the actual visualization of it. But the use of it as in day to day with people, it's absolutely. I mean,
mm,
I would love Dudes and Dogs and his man club to start using it.
mm, mm,
I would say, look, use it because you
mm.
really can measure how your men who are coming into your talking groups, you really know where they're at and what's going on because they can tell you that, oh yeah, I'm not great. What does not great mean?
Mm,
Is that a
mm,
two?
mm,
Is that a one? Is that a
mm.
five? Is that okay? Is it
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I
Your five is
really
my seven, and vice versa, and all the rest of it.
absolutely
It's yeah, it gets
anyone
confusing.
out there
Mm,
use it, and I would encourage anyone who's got a talking group or walking group to introduce to how you out of 10. It's really simplifies.
it does. It's
Um,
clean, simple thinking, isn't it? You know what I mean? We talk about simple language all the time as counsellors and using simple language and not complicating things in the room with the client. That's a big part of our training. But actually, simplified thinking, I think, is important. And I think that's what that number scale does for people is it's simplified thinking. It's making you think, but it's not making you overthink. It's giving you enough option to be able to describe how you are in that moment. That's very powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really powerful. I love it. I love it.
Everyone does it. Whenever I ask someone, they always look to the sky, and it's exactly that, Rich. It's people are in the here and now, and they're pausing and going, and it's amazing how many people go, "Oh, yeah, how am I feeling?" And like, wow, you have no idea. You've not checked in with yourself. You're functioning, and it's true. I read that like 5%, only 5% of the time we're really aware of what's going on. And so we're always in the past or we're always in the future. We're always going, oh God, I forgot to put the bins out, or oh God, later on I've got to get some milk for this. We're never really in the here and now going, what's going on in this very moment? How do I feel? And the how you out of 10 is a really powerful, simple way of getting us to stop, breathe, and really understand how we are feeling.
It's kind of a, when you think about it in that way, the kind of stop, breathe, take a moment for yourself, kind of settle into the space of here and now is actually a very grounding exercise in itself. I'm a big proponent of quick grounding exercises to use, and I teach them to clients all the time because I think having the ability to ground yourself without going off and doing a 10-minute mindfulness meditation or something is really powerful. I'm not doing mindfulness down by any way. I use it every day, but I think having these little quick go-to techniques that you can use to ground yourself is really good, and that's just struck me in the moment chatting then that is a really good one for that how are you out of 10 is actually a quick bang. You're grounded, you're in the moment, you're here and now straight away. It has that effect on you. Love that.
Great.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man. So I want to ask you a little bit more about creativity, and you mentioned earlier on about how you kind of bring creativity into the counselling room, and I'm obviously that's had a massive effect on what you've brought to the table of Talk Club as well. So yeah, I think as a creative therapist myself, creativity is something I'm always drawn to in other people. So what kind of sense do you get of using that in the room with people? What would you use sort of creative techniques, or is it more about an approach to you?
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of Irvin Yalom.
Mm,
Uh, I love him.
me too.
He's sort of my hero, and one of my favorite books is The Gift of Therapy. And on the back of that book, he says, make the therapy for the client. And that's basically become my mantra. Before a client walks in the room, I always say to myself, make the therapy for the client. So
Mm,
even though I trained in certain modalities, I am intuitive, but and I absorb everything and anything, and I'm always training and learning new things, and you could say techniques or theory or
mm,
whatever. But I go with my gut instinct. I'm with a client and I will use whatever I feel. I've used CBT, I've used Gestalt, I've done the chair technique, I've done responsibility pies, I've got shells out and gone, right, thrown a box of shells on the floor and gone, right, let's pick a shell that really gets close to what that
mm,
feeling is inside of you. You're feeling really, what is that? They can't describe it verbally, what's going on for them.
mm,
So, okay, let's get a shell and find something that is close to how you're feeling inside and
mm,
things like that. The anything that can help the client connect with what's going on for them inside, and I just help guide that. Um, and I just I'm open. That's what I would say. I'm open for whatever the client brings,
mm,
whatever's going on. And what I really like about Yalom is he is all about the relationship.
mm,
He's all about what's going on with us, what's going on with us, what's happening here.
mm,
And I don't focus on that solely as much as Yalom, and he's very much about death anxiety and existentialism.
mm,
But
mm,
I do bring I am aware of what's happening with the client and me and how we relating and how's that reflecting on our work and
mm,
so yeah so that's the creative part of me of um I'm really open to trying new things and seeing what evolves and any way I can help clients.
mm. Yeah, me too. Me too. It sounds like you use creativity very much the same as me. It's an approach, you know. For some people, it's about working in a particular modality of creativity, but I think for me, it's about whatever the client wants to do, very similar to you, and
Absolutely.
being in that here and now with them, and not being afraid to take chances with the client as well. You know, doing what comes to you inspirationally in the room has been a big lesson for me in therapy. You know,
Absolutely.
learning to be free, I guess, is another way of looking at it. You know, it's fantastic. It's fantastic that you work in that way. I think when clients are met in that way in the creativity room, I'm quite often, sorry, in the therapy room met with creativity, I'm quite often surprised by their reaction to it, because a lot of people haven't been offered the chance to play since they were children, and coming in to do some form of creative therapy, whether it be sand tray or art therapy, or we're working with, I've had clients who've written plays and we've come in and performed them, and they've been all about their traumatic past, and that's been incredible stuff, you know, really rich and diverse. But quite often they haven't had a chance to play or do anything since they were children, and being offered the chance to, do you want to get the charcoal out, or here's a bit of plasticine to play with, make whatever you want, or here's some paint, just make some marks on the paper, it doesn't matter. When they're offered that, it's almost like a rabbit in the headlights. Oh my god! And then they get into it and relax into it, and then it becomes this thing that works beautifully. It's wild stuff. I'm really glad that I took a dive into doing that, and really pleased to hear that you work in a very similar way to that as well, because I think the approach is everything, definitely.
Yeah, it was a part of my training. On our training, they would bring that creative side to us. Right, let's get some pens out and let's draw. How you're feeling, or right, everyone's going to draw a tree, and what would that tree look like? Is it
Mm,
bare leaves, or lots of different creative things like that, and stories and poems and
mm,
lyrics and yeah. So training wise, that was very much part of our training. And Yeah, and very much in the bereavement side, the shell stuff came from that. We
Mm,
used a lot of shell work in bereavement. It really helped because you only have 6 sessions.
yeah.
So you kind of got to do quite a bit of work in 6 sessions. And so the shell stuff really helped people to identify quickly, I would say,
Mm,
with what's really going on,
mm.
of where they're at. And of course, they're so overwhelmed with grief because grief is overwhelming and fear, and the fear is there and the
It's
anger and the
uncontrollable, isn't it? I think you know you're overwhelmed by it, and then you can't pull yourself back out. You know,
yeah.
I think I felt depression before in my life, but then I had this overwhelming depression that happened after I lost my mum that I found so difficult to pull myself out of because it was like a coat I hadn't chosen to wear. Do you know what I mean? It's the way I used to look. I didn't choose to wear this. Why can't I get it off me? You know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. And once when people are in the depths of grief, it's really hard when you ask them, you can't really say how you're feeling. They just go, shit, I feel
Mm.
shit. Like, yeah, I get it. And so you need something more abstract than that. And that's why the shells are really good because you go, I get you're feeling shit and the world is crushed. And get bringing out the shells and saying, look, how do you identify with any of these shells that just, that you can identify how you're feeling inside. That's really helpful. And then again at the end, we do it again and say what shells. And more often than not, they will choose a really rough, broken shell that describes them. And then when we do it again 6 weeks later, they will find one that's more of a pebble, that's softer and smoother. And they will go, yeah, I was definitely prickly and broken. And now I feel a little bit smoother than I was. Not completely, but and that really helps them to visualize that.
Yeah, tactile objects are so important for us being able to describe things, and I think that's what. If I took one thing from the creative course and I did anything else that I learned, it was that creativity is really just another language for people to express themselves with. You know, it really is, and we express ourselves in unspoken ways, in movement, in eye movement, in body movement, and also from our internal selves through the window of creativity, and that can be whatever it is for anybody. You know, whatever speaks to you as a person. But
Well, I realize now that I've been doing therapy for the last 20 years because, being a songwriter, that's what I was doing. I realize that now that when I listen back to my songs now, I can hear the lyrics and go, oh, wow, I know exactly what that song's about. I know exactly where I was in my life. And this was my way of expressing the pain inside. I didn't know how to say it verbally. And so I would write a song lyrically and then sing it. And that was my therapy. Music was my therapy. That was my outlet. That was my way of expressing my pain and anguish. And like you said, it was my way of how I probably stayed afloat, how I kept going because I had the music to keep. I remember saying to someone once, and I think my stepmom mentioned it. She said, "I remember you saying, how do people cope who don't write songs?" That was like naivety. She said, "I remember you saying that years ago, going, if you're not a songwriter and not, how do you cope? Because I could just to me, it was my way of coping. It was, mental health. No one talked about mental health even 10 years ago. It
no,
was not something that
no,
people really talked about.
no,
So
certainly not
it was.
around where we grew up. Anyway, I mean, I grew up in Cammon, Dursley, and Berkeley around that area, so not too far from where you grew up as well. I think you went to one of the schools around there. I saw on your LinkedIn. I think.
Yeah, Capital Lady
Yeah,
Barton School.
KLB. So yeah, we probably grew up in a similar, like, small market townish kind of area, or you know what I mean, somewhere around about
Yeah,
there. And yeah, the mental health wasn't something that was talked about in those kind of communities when I was young. You know, definitely wasn't.
no. Um, no, my mum lives in Cam now, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, wow, fantastic.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't. It was not something that was discussed. Um, that's why I've sort of said that comment, with sincerity, of like, how do people cope? You know,
Mm.
what are they doing? Is it, but obviously people are taking drink and drugs and, what here and whatever. That was their sort of coping mechanism, their strategies. But
Yeah,
for
Christ,
me,
I was a Houdini of an of an escape artist in my 20s, mate. And I think a lot of other people went down that same road. And looking at somebody like you who's had that creative expression all their life, I think that's a really important question for you to ask. Is like, yeah, how the hell does everybody else cope? And you're literally right in escapism or in bad behaviors in some kind of way, mostly destructive stuff, unfortunately. But it is great to be able to show other people, I think, and to model to other people that there are other ways of dealing with things other than the typical way that society would expect you to. Mm. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. That feels like a really lovely place to wrap up, though, I think. Other than you've got anything else you wanna add to that? Would you like to tell everybody where they can find Talk Club and all the rest of it?
yeah, talkclub.org. Go to the website. If you want to donate, you can donate on the website. If you want to join the club, you'll find the clubs on there. The talk and listen, talk and exercise, the therapy. If you're undecided, please come and try a talking group. Everybody who comes says the same thing. Oh, I wish I'd done that sooner. Oh, this talking stuff's all right, isn't it? It's like, so please, it's there for you. As I said, it's a prevention. It's to maintain that mental fitness. So please do come along, talkclub.org.
Fantastic, and yeah, we'll have a chat off air and we'll set a date for you to come out and do some street interviews. And if you see if you see the two of us out in the street, please do come up and talk to us because we're there to talk to you. That's what it's all about. Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this conversation. Really enjoyed the chat, and it's so warm into my heart to find out that there's a men's mental health charity, and actually, great to know that you've got your sights set on helping everybody, men, women, children, everybody. I think that's really needed, and yeah, just can't wait to see what this grows into in the future. I'll be joining forces with you to do a bit of work, I'm sure. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me, Gavin. Really great to chat with you.
Thanks, Rich. And how are you out of 10 now?
Out of 10 today, I think I'm on about an 8 today, actually. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How about yourself out of 10?
I'm going to check out a 9. I
Okay.
came in, I was an 8.5, but it's been fantastic to talk to you. And yeah, so that's bumped me up to a 9.
Yeah, I reckon I was about a 7 when I came in, feeling a bit flat this morning, end of my working week, so I'm a bit tired and all the rest of it. But yeah, having had this conversation, I feel a lot better. Isn't that great? We should have done the out of 10 to start and at the end, and then it would have been proper, wouldn't it? Great place to end. Chat to you soon, mate. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.